There's a Sanskrit word, seva. It means service, pure, unconditional, offered without expectation of return. Some people understand this word intellectually. Very few live it with every breath in every decade, in every room they enter. A child was born into a family of faith, into a village with no electricity, into a world that would test every conviction he held, and in doing so forge a life that can only be called extraordinary. Every great river begins as a quiet spring, invisible underground, finding its way through rock before it becomes something the world can see. The village of Nagziri in Madhya Pradesh was that spring for Shyam Sundar Mahajan. Born on the 29th of May, 1946. He was the third eldest of 9 children: Vidyadhar, Radha Krishna, Gokul, Jagdish Chandra, Kailas Chandra, and his sisters Radhabai, Suman, and Pramila. The family was large, the home was small, life was simple, and it was full. There was no running water, no electricity, no telephone. At night, the children studied by kerosene lamp, small flames lighting large minds. By day, they lived the village completely. Gulli danda in the lanes, wrestling with schoolmates. Climbing jamun trees. And swimming in the village well. His father, Dr. Ram Narayan Mahajan, was a man of rare character, trained in both allopathic and Ayurvedic medicine. He traveled village to village offering care, accepting grain or cloth as payment when patients had no money. He had memorized nearly 90% of the verses of the Bhagavad Gita. He was fearless, honest, and deeply religious. And the boy watched all of it. His mother, Gulabbai, was the anchor of the home. Simple, selfless, devoted. She cooked, sewed, and cared without complaint, without recognition. Both his parents were Vaishnavas. Both poured that inheritance into their children. The most powerful lessons of Shyam Sundar's childhood were not taught in school. They were told in story. Ramayan kathas, Bhagavad Gita recitations, storytellers who came to the village and built living sculptures from clay, Narada walking between worlds, Dhruva at the foot of a tree, Prahlad in the fire. These images sank into a child's soul and never left. He did not know it then, but he was already on his way. He attended Gandhi Medical College in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, one of the most prestigious medical institutions in central India. He did not merely attend, he excelled. He graduated as a gold medalist, ranked first in his graduating class. He was 22 years old. The world had plans for him. God, it turned out, had bigger ones. Even through his college years, the devotion of his childhood never faded. He was already invited to speak at religious occasions, Janmashtami, scriptural recitations. Medicine trained his mind. Krishna filled his heart. He was searching, even then, for the meeting point between the two. It was his college roommate, Ramesh Bandhari, who introduced him to his sister, Manoram. She was already a devotee of Lord Krishna in his form of Sri Nathji. They were married on July 12, 1970. She would walk every step of this journey with him. Today she is known as Anartha Devi Dasi. After graduation, Dr. Mahajan accepted a posting as civilian medical officer with the Army Ordnance Corps, stationed in Mathura. Of all the postings in all of India, it was here, the birthplace of Lord Krishna. He visited the holy places of Rajmandala regularly in army vehicles. Seeds were being planted, or perhaps roots already laid in childhood were now finding water. He moved to Jabalpur, where he read the Mahabharata with the kind of intensity most people reserve for personal crisis. He was preparing, though he could not yet say for what. Thanks to his academic distinction, he was invited to the United States as a practicing physician. He left India in 1971, one of only a handful of Indian doctors who made that crossing in those early years. He was searching for opportunity. What he would find was a teacher whose words would redirect the course of his life entirely. Within a few months of arriving in America, he and Manoram made a connection that would prove more significant than any medical appointment. The ISKCON temple in Philadelphia, 1972. They were among only a handful of Indian families connected with the temple at that time. The devotees there, Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, Mother Sodamini, would visit their home for programs.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
He began reading Back to Godhead magazine, and then the books of Srila Prabhupada, one by one. Something was opening. A door he had always known was there, though no one had yet shown him the key.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
1st of April, 1973. Henry Street Temple, Brooklyn. Morning class. He saw him for the first time.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness.
Hare Hare.
A man who had arrived in America at age 69 with $7 and a box of books, and had lit a fire that spread across the world.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
He was brought into Prabhupada's room for a personal meeting. There were only a few people present. He asked the question that every sincere practitioner eventually asks.
My mind wanders a lot while chanting. What do I do?
Do your fixed rounds. By the strength of the holy names, the mind will become focused.
Simple, precise, eternal. He never forgot it. Later that year, after the birth of their first son, Sarvesh, they returned to Brooklyn to seek Prabhupada's blessings. The child was placed at his lotus feet. Prabhupada looked at the infant and asked in Hindi,
बाबा का नाम क्या है?
What is Baba's name? In the years between 1973 and 1977, he had several opportunities to see Srila Prabhupada, especially at Rath Yatra festivals. He even photographed Prabhupada, images he still holds in his slide collection today. But he would later reflect, with great humility, he did not yet fully comprehend the magnitude of who stood before him. From the very first year in Krishna consciousness, their home was open to everyone. Book distributors, traveling preachers, devotees from cities they had never visited. None were turned away. The welcome was so complete, so unconditional, that one devotee, Kripamoya Prabhu, once arrived so late that he simply climbed through a window rather than disturb the family at the door. And no one thought it strange, because everyone knew this was a house where the door and windows were always somehow open. The moment of initiation, Harinam, came on Janmashtami Day 1977, New Vrindavan. Before the beautiful deities of Sri Sri Radha Vrindavan Chandra, it was His Holiness Radhanatha Swami who performed the Yajna ceremony. Samik Rsi Das, servant of the sage Samik Rsi, the great Vaishnava mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, a name chosen with precision, a name he spent every year since trying to live up to. The following year in Sridham Mayapur, the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Samik Rsi Das received Brahminical initiation from His Holiness Satsvarupa Das Goswami. The thread was placed, the commitment deepened, the course was now unalterable. On the occasion of his 80th birthday, we reflect on 8 contributions, one for each decade, that define a life so full it can barely be contained in a single film. The first contribution is perhaps the most personal. One by one, he brought his siblings to America, helping them find careers, find stability, find their footing in a foreign country. He took months away from his own work to arrange the marriages of his 2 younger sisters, a responsibility traditionally his father's that he quietly assumed without being asked. He hosted each sibling, sometimes for months, sometimes for years, until they were settled and steady. Grateful and seeing Samik Rsi and an artist's personal example and involvement in ISKCON and devotion to Krishna, they too became inspired to practice the same. Over time, his brothers, sisters, parents, spouses, and children all became connected with ISKCON. Many took initiation. His late parents themselves eventually became initiated devotees in ISKCON. Today, several generations of his extended family are practicing devotees of Lord Krishna, creating what might be described as a dynasty of devotees spread across the United States. His life is a shining example of responsible family life, not just caring and serving his immediate family, wife and children, but also his parents and his siblings in a substantial and genuine way. over 50 years, hundreds of devotees have passed through the doors of Samik Rsi Dasa's home. This is not metaphor. This is the simple, documented, unremarkable to him fact of his life. His Holiness Satsvarup Das Goswami stayed at his home for extended periods, writing. It was in Samik Rsi's Pennsylvania home that the second volume of the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, Planting the Seed, was composed. He built a writing shack in the woods so Maharaj could write in peace and silence. Another example was hosting His Holiness Bhakti Swami and approximately 40 devotees for several months at his home while they filmed Abhay Charan, the biographical film on the life of Srila Prabhupada in the New York area. But perhaps no act of hospitality speaks more plainly to his character than this. When a senior couple, disciples of Srila Prabhupada, could no longer care for their young daughter due to the intensity of their service commitments, Samik Rsi Das took her in. The girl had been severely injured in a car accident and was in a full-body cast, unable to feed, dress, or bathe herself. For several months she lived in his home, cared for by his wife and sister-in-law with complete attention and love. No one asked twice. This is what seva looks like when it is not performed, when it simply is. In 1981, Back to Godhead magazine published an article titled Surgery and Spirituality. It told the story of Dr. Shyam Sundar Mahajan, director of the emergency ward at St. Joseph's Hospital, who treated dozens of emergency cases every single day. Stab wounds, heart attacks, car accidents, thousands of emergency cases each year. He once told a journalist, being a doctor is second best. Being a devotee is better. Devotees offer permanent solutions, whereas doctors can only make temporary repairs, patching things up until something else breaks down and the patient dies. This was not cynicism. This was a man who had stood in operating rooms for decades and still believed with absolute certainty that the most profound healing happens at the level of the soul. But his medical service did not end at the hospital doors. For decades, Samik Rsi extended his expertise freely to the devotee community around the country. Devotees called him from every corner of the nation for advice, for prescriptions, for guidance in moments of medical uncertainty. He never refused a call. He never sent a bill. Many devotee children came into this world in his clinic, delivered by his hands. Surgeries were performed at no cost. Consultations given freely, by phone, in person, across decades and distances. To the devotee community, he was simply always available. Whatever was needed, whatever the hour, Samik Rsi Das did not turn anyone away. This, too, was seva, offered through a stethoscope rather than a mop or a ladle, but seva nonetheless, pure, unconditional, and without expectation of return. He wakes between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, every morning, to chant, to read, to study scripture. This is not discipline imposed from outside. It is the hunger of a man who has tasted something and cannot stop eating. For more than 30 years he has traveled the world, speaking in temples and communities across every continent. Today he serves as an ISKCON Grihastha Guru, a spiritual master who lives as a householder. His life is his lesson. That complete devotion to Krishna is not reserved for monks in saffron robes. It is equally available to the doctor, the husband, the father, who chooses to place Krishna at the center and never waver. He founded a charitable trust, the Every Town and Village Trust, and through it initiated one of the most quietly beautiful projects of his life. Using a significant portion of his personal savings, he arranged the production of 3,000 miniature Krishna temples. Hundreds of these mini-temples were installed in schools, colleges, libraries, and village homes across Gujarat, Maharashtra, South India, and West Bengal. 175 were donated to His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami for ISKCON's tribal preaching program. The project did not unfold exactly as envisioned. The temples proved heavy to transport and difficult to assemble, and not all found their intended place. But this is not a story of failure, it is a story of intention. He gave from his savings, his time, and his heart, in direct answer to Srila Prabhupada's call to bring Krishna consciousness to every town and every village. When Srila Prabhupada was constructing his major temples, Vrindavan, Mayapur, Juhu, Samik Rsi donated seed funds to each. In the 1980s, he helped purchase a building for the Bhaktivedanta Institute and an office for Back to Godhead magazine. From 1996 to 2010, he served as temple president of ISKCON Towacco, New Jersey, leading the effort to locate land and initiate construction of a major new temple in Parsippany, New Jersey, which will stand among the finest ISKCON temples in North America when completed. For 48 consecutive years, his home has been a temple. Shri Shri Radha Sharad Bihari, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev and Subhadra, Shri Shri Gaur-Nitai. 5 offerings of Bhog daily artis. Together he and Anartha Devi Dasi maintained temple standard worship without interruption in a householder home for nearly 4 decades. In the early 1980s, he personally traveled to Jaipur to bring Radha Krishna deities to the ISKCON Philadelphia temple. And then there is Khargone, the village where it all began, the place where a small boy watched clay figures of Dhruva and Prahlad and heard the stories that would never leave him. The Shri Shri Radha Gopinath temple complex he built in Khargone now serves hundreds of people every week. He also installed the deities of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath in his hometown of Khargone, returning the grace he had received to the very soil where he first learned to love the Lord. During Rath Yatra, attendance reaches 15 to 20,000. He brought what he found in America back to the place that first planted it in him. 8 decades, 1 village, 1 faith, carried across continents, offered to thousands, returned to the soil of his origin. This is not a story about achievement, though the achievements are extraordinary. This is a story about what happens when a human being decides, early and absolutely, to place the Lord at the center of his life and never move him from it. He was a son who honored his father by becoming a man of equal principle, a husband who walked every road with his wife beside him, a doctor who healed bodies while pointing souls towards something medicine cannot reach, a grihastha who proved that the householder path, walked with full sincerity, is as complete a path to the Lord as any other, a guru who teaches not from doctrine alone, but from the example of a life fully lived. A builder who constructed temples because he could not imagine the world without them. A host who opened his door and kept them open for 50 years. The Srimad Bhagavatam, the scripture that storytellers once sculpted in clay for a village child, contains a verse that may have been written for a life like his. Itavajjanma safalyam dehinam iha dehinam pranayararterdya vacha shreya acharanam sada. The perfection of human life, its highest fulfillment, is this: to always act through one's very life, one's wealth, one's intelligence, and one's words for the ultimate benefit of all living beings.